1992 was a great year to be a gamer. This was the year when the system war absolutely caught fire, with the Super Nintendo snagging one of the most important exclusives of all time, and Sega launching brand new hardware. This was also the year when Sega finally put the Master System out of its misery, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles traveled through time, and NEC rebranded as TTI and released the TurboDuo. No matter what kind of games you're after, there's a system that's right for you. But, which console reigns supreme? In order to answer that burning question, I decided to flip through the pages of Electronic Gaming Monthly's 1993 Video Game Buyer's Guide, where Steve, Ed, and the rest of the review crew rated all of 1992's hottest consoles. Come join me as I parachute into the front lines of the system war and count down Electronic Gaming Monthly's top 12 game systems of 1992.
So let's do it.
After 6 years and multiple revisions, 1992 is the year when Sega finally gave up on their 8-bit Master System. With the Genesis flying off the shelves and the Sega CD welcoming gamers to the next level, Sega wanted to look forwards, not backwards. And you know what? The same went for Electronic Gaming Monthly, which reviewed a total of 0 Master System games in all of the 12 issues of 1992. With no new games and Sega discontinuing the system, it's easy to see why the Master System was EGM's lowest rated system of the year. Steve started his review with an important question. Why are we even talking about this system? Sega isn't supporting it, and neither should players. Ed agreed, using his review to say goodbye to Sega's 8-bitter. Rest in peace, Master System. With no licenses and no support from Sega, there's no way anyone would want to buy a system with no future. Adios, SMS. I would say that Sushi X gave it a slightly more fitting obituary. Let's face it, the Master System doesn't have the huge library of games like the NES and never will. I'd rather have a Game Gear with a Master System converter. The Master System may be dead, but thanks to the Game Gear, its legacy will live on. At least for another year or two. With a score of 2.5 out of 10, the Sega Master System is once again the worst reviewed system of the year. Forget the 16-bit war for a minute, because the real story of the 1990s was how Electronic Gaming Monthly learned to stop hating and possibly even embrace the Game Boy. That's right, slowly but surely, Nintendo's handheld is starting to rub off on the EGM editors, to the point where at least one of the editors might start recommending people buy it. And given 1992's lineup, it's easy to see why. This was the year that gave us a phenomenal port of Bionic Commando, along with Mega Man 3, Batman Return of the Joker, and even Bonk, who was once the TurboGrafx-16's mascot. Crazy! With a solid selection of new and old games, the EGM editors were starting to warm up to Nintendo's black and white handheld. You definitely see this in Steve's review. Limited? You bet. But the Game Boy can still play a good game. The resolution and overall presentation gets mixed reviews. When the game is good, the machine is a hit. You also saw Martin's score creep up a little bit, with him noting that he was surprised by the number of cool games this year. Bionic Commando, Mega Man 3, and many more were superb. The blurring still kills this underdog among portables. Sushi X, on the other hand, was not ready to stop hating the Game Boy. Giving it a 2 out of 10, he asked a really stupid question. Why is this system still on the market? It's completely defunct, with about 1 or 2 playable titles per year. A large library of games, which all blur, doesn't save this relic. To answer his question, the Game Boy, of course, is still on the market because, well, people were buying it in droves. When your own magazine is reviewing 24 Game Boy games in a year, I'd say that's a sign that your system isn't, as you say, defunct. Sushi's score ultimately brought the average down to a mere 4.25 out of 10. With the 16-bit race in full swing and fewer games hitting 8-bit consoles, you might think that the Nintendo Entertainment System was on its last legs. Well, not so. At least, not when it came to the games that EGM reviewed in 1992. This was a year that gave us Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, The Manhattan Project, Gargoyles Quest 2, Bucky O'Hare, and both Mega Man 4 and 5. With all these heavy hitters, you might expect the trusty old NES to do a little bit better than a 4.25 out of 10. But it's painfully clear that EGM's review crew was done with the 8-bit generation. Even Sushi X, who gave the NES the highest score, seemed to think the system is dead. The best thing I can say about the NES is that it has a huge library of software for the money. 8-bit games just don't compare to the rock-solid 16-bit power. Rest in peace. Ed, on the other hand, was shocked by how quickly the 8-bit systems died. Everybody but the software giants have abandoned the NES for the Super Nintendo, and with the 16-bitter only $20 more, who cares? And then there's Martin, who makes a curious argument against the system. I really can't remember the last time I saw a decent title for this system. Oh yeah, you recommended all those games I mentioned at the top, along with several more. I mean, yes, 1992 wasn't the best year ever for the NES, but come on, there were plenty of at least decent games. EGM gave the NES an average score of 4.25 out of 10. One of the biggest surprises to come out of the first 2 episodes is EGM's admiration for the Atari Lynx. While they individually doubted the system's longevity and often complained about the game selection, the Lynxes managed to outscore the high-profile handhelds like the Game Boy and the Game Gear. Sadly, time is starting to catch up to Atari's powerful portable. While 1992 gave us Toki, Rampart, Shadow of the Beast, and Hydra, there was a feeling that the software support was beginning to dry up. With the competition heating up, Electronic Gaming Monthly had a hard time recommending the Lynx. Steve sums it up this way: still a system that has plenty of power and no games that use it. The Lynx has made strides in the number of softs available, but the quality remains B+ at best. No standout hits. Ed gave the handheld a lower grade, but is still rooting for the surfboard-shaped system. The Lynx has been slowly gaining popularity. Atari promised a lot of new games, but they're very slow in getting to the store shelves. The system still has potential. Believe it or not, it's actually Sushi X who's the Lynx's biggest supporter. Giving it a 7 out of 10, Sush argued that the Lynx has a few more titles and a growing number of supporters. The software, with a little more tweaking, could skyrocket the Lynx past the Game Gear in the future. With scores just all over the place, the Lynx averages a middle-of-the-road 5.25 out of 10.
Some people are content to be entertained by simple one-color electronics. Somehow these people have just never heard of Game Gear, the multicolor portable from Sega with tons of new titles. Yeah, some people are like that, but then some people like to eat pickled pork lips. System and game sold separately.
Oh, what a difference a year makes. When we last checked in with the Game Gear, it was EGM's worst reviewed system of 1991. However, here we are in 1992, and it's up to number 8! What happened? Well, believe it or not, there's actually a few things working in the Game Gear's favor, including a solid software lineup that included Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Alien 3, Chuck Rock, and even a Golden Axe spin-off. What's more, this was the year that the Game Gear got the Master System converter, which opened up a whole library of console games at a reasonable price. Despite all these good things happening to the Game Gear in 1992, EGM was still pessimistic. They may have been warming up a bit to handhelds, but this was happening at the exact same time that they were cooling off on 8-bit. It sums it up this way. Sega has been slow to bring out the new games, but now with Sonic 2 and all the old Sega Master System carts to choose from, this seems to be the system to beat. Steve went lower, giving it a 4 and arguing that I'm not impressed with this system, although Sonic on the Go is fun. Would you believe that it's actually Sushi X who's the biggest cheerleader for Sega's handheld? Giving it a 7, he explains that now that the Game Gear has some cool games and access to most of the Master System titles, the Game Gear has become the portable system of choice. Talk about an impressive comeback! With an average score of 5.5 out of 10, the Game Gear is the most improved system of the year. With the Super Nintendo and Genesis taking up all of the oxygen, NEC knew that they had to make some big moves if they were going to claw their way back into the system war. This resulted in the creation of the TurboDuo, an all-in-one machine that we're going to talk about a little bit later in this countdown. The big news for the TurboGrafx CD owners is that they could upgrade their machines with the Super System card, allowing for even more powerful games. This gave the system a jolt of energy right when they needed it most. But was it enough? Electronic Gaming Monthly wasn't so sure. Steve sums it up perfectly. The system scores some points as a valid, low-price machine with new games around the corner and CD possibilities. However, if you ask Ed, he'd tell you that the system continues to exist, but barely. The very newest batch of cards are okay, but not great. With heavy emphasis being put on CDs, the base system is hurting. At this point, Sushi wasn't having it. Turbo who? With the passing of NEC in favor of TTI, I'll expect some great things in the future of the crippled TurboGrafx-16. Until then, the Turbo is on thin ice. With the attention on the TurboDuo, not even the Super System card could save the TurboGrafx-16 from a 5.75 out of 10. With the focus turning to the TurboDuo and CD-ROMs, it's easy to see why the TurboExpress lost a little ground in 1992. While the system is still scoring better than the 3-year-old TurboGrafx-16, we're starting to see its many weaknesses dominate the discussion. And with most of the coolest Turbo games opting for CD over HuCard, this was not a great year for the high-priced handheld. That said, most of Electronic Gaming Monthly's review crew still felt that the portable was still worth picking up. Martin argues the new price makes the high-tech system the most desirable portable out there. Steve also liked the tech, but what about the games? As a TV and big-ticket machine, this system is a winner. The games, however, aren't up to snuff. While his score may be low, Sushi X's review seemed surprisingly optimistic. With added support of TTI, it may emerge as the victor of the portable wars of 1993. With an average of 6.5 out of 10, the TurboExpress finds itself in the middle of the pack. Tune in next time to see if Sushi X's wildly optimistic prediction actually comes true. "1992 is what I would call a transition year for the Neo Geo. While the first half of the year was dominated by the usual shoot-'em-ups and brawler fare, the last half was dominated by fighting games like World Heroes, Art of Fighting, and King of the Monsters 2. If you lived through the 1990s, then you already know that SNK would continue to milk the fighting genre throughout the rest of the decade and beyond. 1992 was the last year you could reasonably argue that the Neo Geo had a well-balanced library. With the high price point still being an issue, a lot of the 1992 reviews sound exactly like the ones from the last 2 years. Giving it a 7 out of 10, Steve called it the major superpower in game systems, but argued that it's plagued by the same high-price softs that have always limited its market. Martin agreed on the price, but explains that the real problem is the cost of the games. That said, incredible games like Fatal Fury and Viewpoint make Neo very tempting. Sushi X, on the other hand, is still not buying into the Neo Geo's hype. All year, I've been treated to high-priced, boring endings and gasp, tons of flickers and slowdown. What happened? Where is the supposed 24-bit power? It's a no-go. Still, with an average score of 6.5 out of 10, the Neo Geo was one of the few systems this year to actually gain some ground. We'll have to see what the hard right turn into fighting games does to the score in 1993.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do? And what if you don't have blast processing?
We've already talked about the Super System card and the continued support of the TurboExpress, but NEC's big move in 1992 was to create the brand Turbo Technologies Incorporated and release a new all-in-one console called the TurboDuo. This reasonably priced alternative married the HuCard-loving TurboGrafx with a faster CD-ROM, all in the same box. That's not a bad strategy, especially with Sega releasing their own expensive CD add-on and Nintendo threatening to do the same thing with the Super NES. If nothing else, it gave TTI a chance to have another grand opening, giving the Turbo lineup some much-needed momentum at a time when the system war was quickly getting away from them. The good news is that the TurboDuo easily outscored the old-school TurboGrafx-16. Unfortunately, with most critics giving it a 7 out of 10, this clearly wasn't going to be enough to catch up with the Genesis or Super Nintendo. Martin sums it up this way. The Duo is a great way to get the complete Turbo experience in one package. Ed agrees, but has some real concerns about the system's longevity. TTI has put together a great CD-cart combo system. With plenty of good Japanese CDs to choose from, the Duo should do quite well. The lack of US licensees will hurt it, though. Sushi X ended up giving the system the lowest score, noting that it's nothing more than a TurboGrafx with an outdated CD attachment. Hooray! Although Sushi's review may have been drenched in sarcasm, the TurboDuo still managed to average a score of 6.75 out of 10. Good enough for a 4th place finish. After spending 2 years at the number 1 position, the Sega Genesis took a little bit of a tumble in 1992. Losing 1 whole point and coming in 3rd, it's clear the Genesis finally has some real competition. Part of the issue is that the 1992 lineup wasn't as original or frankly as good as what we saw 1 year earlier, with sequels like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Rolling Thunder 2, and John Madden Football 93 all receiving high marks, while Sega's misfires like Green Dog and Kid Chameleon failed to impress. It also didn't help that Nintendo scored the biggest exclusive of the year, the mega popular Street Fighter 2. And with the release of a CD add-on for the Genesis, it was clear that Sega's attention was split between multiple systems. Don't get me wrong, 1992 was still a good year for Sega, but clearly, it was a big step down from 1991. Despite having a strong lineup, some of the EGM editors were starting to wonder if the Genesis was starting to run out of steam. Take a look at Steve, who called the system a strong machine, especially in the sports department. Nevertheless, the machine is reaching its full potential despite some new cards from Konami. Ed chose not to blame Sega for the drop in score, but rather the third parties. This system maintains its strength because of Sonic and the sports games. The licensees haven't come through with a lot of hot cards, and that has hurt the system's popularity. Despite some negativity, Martin was still on board. Still, one of the best buys in video gaming. The games don't have the graphics and sound support of the Super Nintendo, but still impress me. With Street Fighter II dominating the discussion in 1992, Sega was right back to playing catch up with Nintendo. This leaves the Genesis with an average score of 8 out of 10. While Nintendo was taking a victory lap over having the only console with Street Fighter II, Sega had their own exclusive to get excited about. I'm talking about the Sega CD, which finally came out in America in late 1992, promising games and genres that wouldn't even be possible on the Genesis or Super Nintendo. It was a big deal, with Sega creating their own multimedia studio in order to create their own new experiences instead of just simply porting the CD games that were coming from Japan. Wow, that would prove to be a controversial decision. It was seen at the time as Sega had taken the new technology seriously. Even though EGM only managed to review 4 Sega CD games in 1992, it was clear that the editors had bought into the potential of the machine. Ed couldn't wait to gush over the add-on, including that it was easily the best system on the market. With dual 16-bit processors, this unit just cruises through the full-motion video scenes in the new games. No access time, cool! Martin seemed a bit more skeptical, noting that at first, this system didn't seem that great. A few of the newer softs are starting to show potential. By next year, the system should be rocking all kinds of rad softs. SushiX also liked the system, giving it an 8 and calling it awesome. The Sega CD really packs a powerful punch. Not only does it upgrade the Genesis's capabilities, it starts off again with no 16-bit contenders to battle. Wait, no competition? I guess you're just gonna forget about the TurboDuo, huh? Whatever you say, Sush. With an average score of 8.25 out of 10, the Sega CD starts its life on a high note. Let's see if Sega can maintain that position in 1993. From Contra 3 to Super Star Wars to A Link to the Past, there's no doubt that 1992 was a great year for the Super Nintendo. But even with those big hitters, all eyes were on the biggest, most important 16-bit exclusive of them all. I'm talking Street Fighter II. There's no doubt about it, Street Fighter II was a big get for Nintendo's fledgling 16-bitter. And it's one of the big reasons why the Super Nintendo is sitting at number 1 right now. But it's not the only reason, because Nintendo and their third parties really delivered in 1992. This was a year packed with Turtles in Time, Smash TV, Mario Kart, Out of This World, and even Mario Paint. 1992 was for the Super Nintendo what 1991 was to the Genesis. Steve sums it up perfectly. The games are better and the machine has only scratched the surface. With a variety of upgrade chips on the way and the best titles, this is the system of the 90s. SushiX agreed. All hail the Super Nintendo. It has emerged as the 16-bit gaming leader now that it has overcome the plague of slowdown. That's not bad for 2 generations of games. For as excited as Martin was about 1992, he was even more excited about 1994? Definitely the hottest system around. Incredible sights and sounds with a touch of slowdown. CD in 94. So, about that Super Nintendo CD in 1994. Well, we'll just cross that bridge when we get to it, huh? For now, the Super Nintendo tops the list with an average score of 8.75 out of 10.
That happen. wasn't too bad, kid.
Pretend it's a game.
Hey, thanks for watching us count down the best and worst systems of 1992. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we've been posting new episodes every single Friday. We're already up to episode 3. There's a whole playlist with the previous episodes, so you should go and check those out when you have a chance. And hey, do me a favor and, share this with people who like old consoles, classic reviews, video game magazines, or, all of the above. These episodes take a long time to put together, so I'd really appreciate your help spreading the word. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is your favorite console of 1992? Ooh, there's so many good ones to choose from. And I love how back and forth the system war is right now. Sega wins a couple, but here comes Nintendo from behind. Ooh, so much fun. Come on, let me see your picks in the comments below. Speaking of classic magazines, we'll be back on Monday with the series finale of Next Generation's 1-star reviews. Find out what they had to say in the years 2001 and 2002. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.